Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Launched in 2010 in 300 pieces, this may be the most accurate mechanical watch Jaeger-LeCoultre has ever made. Jaeger-LeCoultre invented the Duomètre in 2007, a dual-wing movement, two barrels for two different purposes, two movements, drivetrains, a single regulator, all based on a minute-repeating chronometer pocket watch from the company's museum, the Heritage Gallery. What wasn't possible in series production back in the 1880s became possible in the 2000s with the Duomètre. First launched as a chronograph, it was expanded into a model line in 2010 with this watch, which is focused entirely on chronometry. We'll talk about that in a moment, but let's talk about the basics. This limited edition launch model is 42 millimeters in yellow gold. It measures 13.8 millimeters thick and 50.4 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip with a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, you can see it's broad and it definitely fills up the real estate, but I also owned a Duomètre chronograph in white gold, which was the same size as this watch, different internals, same physical footprint. I loved that watch. So I believe you can wear this watch on a wrist as small as 16 centimeters circumference, which is what I have right here. You can see the lugs push out to the edge, but they do not overhang beyond that. It is not a thin watch, but nor is it an excessively thick watch. If you look at the bezel, it's sloped and so is the crystal. So this is a watch that will slip underneath a dress cuff. Taking a look at the strap, it's one of Jaeger-LeCoultre's best. Large rectangular scale alligator leather in a high-grade semi-gloss with a sheer-cut edge, a monotone stitch, calfskin on the bottom. You'll appreciate this is a JLC Camille Fournet-made OEM strap. Camille Fournet in France is the OEM supplier to JLC. They make all the JLC branded straps, and they make them beautifully by hand. And you can see this is a brand new strap. The buckle, yellow gold and double folding. Later Duomètre models, in an effort to control costs and lower retail prices, were equipped with pin buckles. Well, as it launched, it was a flagship, a showcase for everything Jaeger-LeCoultre of Le Sentier could do, La Grande Maison, the greatest, the watchmaker's watchmaker. It was all of those things. And the flagship from a brand like that could not have a pin buckle. So we got a full folding clasp. The case is beautiful, and if I do say so myself, much like a Lange, this watch has often been described as something of a collaborative effort between Lange designers and engineers and Jaeger-LeCoultre, and while I've never been able to substantiate that, there is an awfully strong air de famille between something like a Lange 1 and this watch. And you could see in the cylindrical profile of the round case, the stepped-out lugs, which here are welded on rather than the frequent screw-fixed lugs of Lange, and the shallow conical bezel, the contrast between longitudinal satin and the polish, all of that evokes Lange design. Maybe it's just that the two companies had the same thing in mind. Find a way to honor a pocket watch heritage in a wristwatch package. And to that end, both have succeeded. What impresses me here is that unlike something like a dotograph, for example, the lugs really were built separate from the case, inserted into a slot in the case, welded on, and then all evidence of the weld removed by hand to create that sharp break between polish and satin. And unlike Lange, look at the little JL mark on the case back. This is the maker's mark. JLC makes its own cases. Lange does not. Dial side. As with the original 2007 Duomètre, a chronograph, which was a 42mm 300-piece yellow gold edition, this one features a lovely, pebbly, textured, granular, eggshell-toned dial. So it has both the texture and the color of, for example, a goose's egg. It's not white, it's not silver, and it's warm enough that it's a handsome complement to the bright yellow gold of the case. Now you have two separate barrels and two separate power reserves, each with a 50-hour reserve down at the base of the dial. On this model, both of them need to be wound in order for the watch to function. On the chronograph, in theory, you can just have the time-telling functions running without the chrono wound. Here you want to wind both of them, and you do so. Notice the classic ratchet-style pocket watch clicks included. You do so by turning the crown in opposite directions. One ratchets while the other winds. And you could see one barrel powers the escapement, and it does nothing but power the escapement. The other operates the time display as well as the complications, and it says so on the dial side as well. Here's the barrel that controls the regulator. Here's the barrel that controls all of the time displays. And you can see the skeletonized view into the movement below caliber 381, a dual wing movement. So you have a 21,600 vibration per hour beat rate, and then you have center running seconds. You have a 1/6 of a second foudroyant or lightning seconds hand. We have superimposed hour and minute hands over at, I suppose you could say, about 230 on the dial. Now what's special here is that when I pull the crown out to the first detent, you see how it stops the foudroyant and it stops the seconds hand? Now I pull it out to the second detent, and like a chronograph reset, a hammer falls on the heart cam at the center of the movement to reset the seconds hand. Now I can synchronize to the second and to the 1/6 of a second. But take note, the watch is still running. The hacking mechanism disconnects the time-telling drivetrain while keeping the balance in action. So when you restart the watch, the balance isn't restarting from 0 amplitude. As a result, you can set this watch precisely without the inherent slowing and loss of time that always follows hacking seconds on a conventional stop seconds watch. And this is the only movement I've encountered that I know for sure includes this as a feature. I once had a escapement continue running while I hacked another watch from another brand. I wasn't sure at the time whether it was a damage or a feature. Here, I know for a fact the balance always runs as long as there's energy in the barrel. You can see the dual wing movement looks like a Longa movement. It's made of German silver. They call it maillot in the French-speaking watchmaking regions like the Vallée du Jeu, where JLC is located. And so it's a nickel copper zinc alloy with the copper giving it that golden hue. You can see that the steel parts are all bright silver in contrast to the warmth of the bridges and plates. You can also see that there's engine turning in 2 different sizes on the base plate, satination on all the wheels, including the barrels. We have both black polished and fire blued screws. And if you look carefully, you can see some of the finest anglage you'll find on any JLC watch under 100,000. They did not spare any expense in the finishing of the dual wing movements, because although it was somewhat excessively priced compared to, say, the high complication pieces, the dual wing Duomètre series was still a technical flagship for JLC. It is a free sprung balance adjusted in 6 positions. All of this pivots on 42 joules. The way this works is one barrel operates the escapement. So the escapement gets a full force of the barrel, and all of the time-telling functions, the date and the moon phase, do not draw down the amplitude and slow the watch. Now, if I want to make adjustments, I have a little pusher adjuster that allows me to adjust the leaf hand that indicates the radial date, and then there's a little pusher adjuster that allows you to make adjustments to the moon phase. This watch goes through the Master 1000 hours control, and there is, truth be told, a different Master 1000 hours control for different models and different model lines. On reversos, for example, the tolerances are not as strict as you'll find on, for example, a tourbillon or a master control or a Duomètre. And here, the watch will have been regulated by JLC to run no worse than 1 second per day. And that realistically would be the factory tolerance for a watch like this. It's full of surprises, though. 50 meters water resistant. You expect 20 to 30 on a dress watch. JLC always going above and beyond. My favorite feature on the whole watch in terms of finishing is the use of this Côte de Soleil that radiates out from an imaginary center point over the balance. You can see it extending across the bridges and radiating out from the center. A very special watch, and probably the most appealing version of the Duomètre Quantième Lunaire. Truly impressive in every regard. This is a watch for the ages, and given that you can set it to 1/6 of a second, probably the most accurate mechanical watch Jaeger-LeCoultre has ever made. Reach out to Tim Mosso at thewatchbox.com for pricing details.